Welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk. You don't know, my name's Chad. Take a dive into sports. And if you've not been living underneath the rock, you know that recently the UCLA and USC has dropped a bombshell on college football. They announced their intentions to leave the Pac-12 and join the Big Ten. The Big Ten has pretty much said, yep, I like the idea. You can come on over. Their game plan is for them to join in 2024, a year before Texas and Oklahoma are due to arrive in the SEC. So what's this going to do with the rest of the college landscape? This is another massive realignment scenario where conferences are just going to dismantle. It's just going to create the super leagues that everyone's been really, vying for. This is create, the Pac-12 and the Big 12 to merge. I mean, there's just so many things to kind of dive into this and to kind of look at, and I'm going to try to see if I can do keep this short and sweet, hopefully. But in case you haven't watched any of my videos before, you know I do like to ramble a bit. But before I dive into all that action, if you could go ahead, smash that thumbs for me. Especially like the content provide you. Really pleases you two gods. Help promote this channel out. You can also subscribe. Love you guys are reviewing my work. Love you all for doing that. Not me if you subscribe. It costs you a dime. Helps me provide more entertainment value for you. Now, looking at the scenario of both USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, this is something the Big Ten really needed to do to counter the SEC's grab of Texas and Oklahoma. Because once the SEC grabbed those two, they grabbed the next two big blue blood programs into their fold. They pretty much made the SEC its own semi-professional football league. So the Big Ten had to stretch out. Now, locally, the only one that really kind of fits that mold is Notre Dame, but they have their, I'll get more into them in a bit. And then who else are you going to add to kind of, lift your status up? So them going out west, actually, in that aspect makes sense. Me, personally, I hate the bloody idea. USC and UCLA has been anything since the Pac-10 became the Pac-12. They've let Utah beat them. They let San Diego State beat them. Oregon is more of a powerhouse than USC and UCLA. I understand the history behind the Trojans, and I totally get that aspect. It's one of the premier schools for college football in the nation. There's no doubt about that one. It's just they've yet to reassert themselves on the national stage. And then someone out there, I think it was on Twitter, I saw this, that the map of the Big Ten and the SEC almost looks like the map during who sided with who during the Civil War. I mean, that kind of blew my mind to kind of see the correlation between the two. But I just kind of find that funny to kind of look at it that way. And this kind of leads down to the thing: what is next in the conference realignment scenario? Is the ACC going to invade the Pac-12, become a coast-to-coast conference like the Big 10? Does the Pac-12 and Big 12 merge? I mean, that's another one people kind of looked at. Is 16 the limit, or will the SEC and Big 10 go more? Now, me personally, I don't think conferences will go beyond 16, because once you get beyond 16, scheduling becomes more of a nightmare. It gets more of a logistical challenge. And then now you're turning college football away from the amateur the rivalries that the fans across the nation love into a semi-professional football league, just a developmental league for the NFL, which everyone pretty much thinks college football is anyways, which in hindsight kind of is, depending on the program you're at. So I'm not this big proponent of the 16-team format. And I think 14 should be the max for these conferences, but we all know what rules college football as the almighty dollar. And this is all this is. For the Big Ten, they'll have all three major media markets now under the umbrella. We'll have New York with Rutgers, Northwestern has Chicago, and then now USC UCLA for LA. Now, do many people in Chicago really care about Northwestern? Probably not a lot. They probably care more about Notre Dame than maybe Northwestern. Rutgers has a small showing in the Big Apple, like 600,000, I believe, is an estimated number of fans that care for the Scarlet Knights. But to have at least, a snippet of that market and a snippet of Chicago, and then you have LA. I mean, that's pretty good. SEC will have, of course, Atlanta. Pretty much every major southern U.S. city be under their umbrella. So looking at that aspect, I'll look at, money-wise, yeah, sure, makes sense. Trying to come up with a viable solution to kind of figure out, hey, this is how you should really move forward. That's something a little different. But going back to the scenario, like, what does the ACC do? I don't see them going out to the Pac-12. I really don't. But then again, I never thought Oklahoma, Texas go SEC, or Maryland, Rutgers would go to Big Ten, or let alone USC, UCLA, or UCF, West Virginia go to Big 12. I mean, these are type of scenarios I never saw coming. I'll let you know what's really driving behind it. It's not the student athlete. It's chasing the Benjamins. But going back to ACC, the key piece for them is Notre Dame. As you probably could tell, I am an Irish fan. And I've said in many, many videos already, Notre Dame technically belongs in the Big Ten. I've been a big proponent of that for a long time. I don't think it's going to happen anymore. We're all familiar with the Irish's independent nature and MC contract dealing with football. And it's one of the sports that's not associated with the ACC. And there's hockey. Hockey's not supported by the ACC. There's technically only two programs in the ACC that support hockey, and they play different conferences. Notre Dame's in the Big Ten. This is the only major conference to support. So, excluding hockey and football, everything else is in the ACC. And they're contractually bound to say if they will join a conference, they have to join the ACC. This also depends on how the college football playoff plays out as well. Do they expand? Do they just limit the number of limit the opportunities Notre Dame gets in? And go, hey, you got to join a conference to really, get in there. And they could buy out their contract from the ACC, buy out all the games that get scheduled out. It's like 20, 30 years. It's some ridiculous number that got scheduled out for ACC football games. They could buy out all of those. But if college football is starting to go in this route of super leagues, Notre Dame's going to find themselves outside looking in. They got to look at a way to give them the best opportunity to make the college football playoff. And for them, that's the ACC. Gives them the 15, so who's going to be number 16? And there's a couple of them out there, I think, that the ACC will look at. They won't go far. They won't go west of the Mississippi. They'll definitely take a look at Memphis. They'll look at the Big 12's eastern schools of Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF. Definitely think those guys will look at Tulane and UAB and even South Florida could be possibilities out of the American. Just because Memphis and Cincinnati have both 41 wins in the past 5 years. Also, there are R1 research universities. Tulane's an AAU member. UAB's football has 40-plus wins the past 5 years. But I think Central Florida and South Florida will be out of the question because that's just put too many teams in Florida. They're going to want to look to try to expand their footprint a bit. But I think for them, they probably would go with West Virginia. Just for the mere fact of West Virginia has the rivalries with Pitt, with Virginia Tech, Syracuse. They're familiar with Boston College, Miami, Louisville, Notre Dame. So you create more revenue by keeping it close and increasing the fan attendance of certain games. So that really kind of helps help the get the numbers up, because then you get those big rivalry games. You get the backyard brawl back again, the Black Diamond Series. I mean, for me, that's what I would do. But the ACC will probably go like Cincinnati or Memphis. But I'm gonna stick with West Virginia because I want to see the backyard brawl once again. So, with that being said, what's the Pac-12 and Big 12 does? Do they merge? And for me, I would say no, because looking at what just happened, Pac-12 will go back down to 10. That's losing the LAs. And then the Big 12 will drop down to 11 after losing West Virginia. That's a 21-member conference. And like I said, I don't see conferences going past 16. And the Pac-12 does have a educational requirement before getting in there, much like the Big Ten does. Big Ten is you have to be an AAU member upon applying. Once you're in, you can get rid of that, i.e. Nebraska. The Pac-12 has, you have to be R1 Research University. Every single member of that conference is that, and there's a handful of those that are even AAU members themselves, like USC UCLA. So for them, that's what they're kind of looking at. One thing they're going to try to look at is trying to replace the California schools they lost. And the top two California schools in the Mountain West is Fresno State and San Diego State, both of which don't meet that R1 status. Now, the schools in the Mountain West that do meet that R1 status are New Mexico, Colorado State, Utah State, Nevada, and UNLV. Colorado State would be blocked by Colorado right away, and I think Utah State would be blocked by Utah as well. So I'll just leave New Mexico, Nevada, and UNLV, and none of them really move the meter of that one. Nevada probably more so because they are a 30-plus win in the past 5 years, so they'll at least have a little clout when it comes to that. UNLV just has location. That's their main draw, is being in Vegas, and they already got, the Pac-12 championships going there anyways. You might as well put the school there. But UNLV is under 20. New Mexico is not that much better. And they're in the same boat. They're even probably less than 10. So with that being said, those two will probably be a bad situation. I think another thing to probably look at is looking at schools that will add some pop, add some flair to their institutions. That's Boise State. I even say BYU could probably be in that position. And the dark horses of Montana and Montana State. Yeah, I don't see FCS programs jumping from the FCS to a Power 5 conference. I don't see that happening. But Montana and Montana State are a couple of the bigger programs in the FCS in the past 5 years. Both of them done extremely well, even regardless of that terrible 2020 season. Both programs have 35 wins in the past 5 years. I mean, not to mention the accolades that, the Montanas already have national championships there. And they're familiar with some of these schools back from the old Pacific Coast days. They used to be part of the same conference along with Idaho. So they do have some history, so it could happen, but I don't think so. I see something else in store for the Montanas, and I'll do that a little bit later. But for me, the shopping list for the Pac-12 should be right away San Diego State, Boise State. And then you get these two. These are the two best options in the Mountain West. They're both 40-plus win schools. Boise State, of course, the original BCS buster, yet to be in the Power 5 conference. The only thing they're holding these two back is their status. They're both R2 research facilities, or research institutions, and not R1, so they'll actually, have to upgrade that, or the Pac-12 will kind of go, hey, as long as you in the process of become an R1, go ahead, come in. And then to keep up with that academic part, bring in Nevada and UNLV. I know that takes away Fresno State, but I don't see that one happening at this time. Sorry. But I think Fresno State definitely be a better choice than UNLV, no doubt about it. But, get Boise State, San Diego State, Nevada, UNLV, get up to 14 members, be a viable conference that way. And then now we go to the Big 12. And the Big 12 shopping list is not as strict as the Pac-12's. They're looking for members that get best available for them. It's Boise State, that's Memphis, that's UAB, that's Utah, SMU, Utah State, San Diego State, maybe even Fresno State. Maybe the Big 12 also goes coast to coast. But I think the Big 12 would try to, and then, look at travel partners. South Florida for UCF. Maybe a Colorado State, Wyoming, New Mexico, Utah State, Boise State for BYU, something along those lines. So looking at this particular scenario, there's a lot of schools out there that could be kind of looked at. SMU is another one. But I think they'll avoid SMU to limit the number of Texas programs in there. Nothing against the Mustangs. Their rivalries with, the old Southwest days with TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Houston, renew that. I get that one, but I don't see that one happening. But I do see Memphis be the first one called. They've already started the process of updating their football facility. The Liberty Bowl desperately needs it. So once that happens, they'll definitely be the crown, the next jewel to be looked at from the American to make the move up. Beyond that one, I think they'll go with travel partners to kind of keep Central Florida and BYU happy to get someone close. Do I think these are the best options? No. But I think Utah State and South Florida will probably end up joining. That way the Big 12 really has 2 schools in Florida. They have that 4 schools in Texas, 2 huge recruiting hotbeds. I don't really see them going after Fresno State, San Jose State, even though that'll give them some recruiting clout in California. But if they lose out that San Diego State, Boise State sweepstakes to the Pac-12, I think their best option would probably go with, Utah State, South Florida, even though I can see them going after maybe Colorado State and Wyoming, bringing them both in, and then it's kind of let UCF be the outlier like West Virginia was for many years. But I'm going to stick with Utah State, South Florida, and Memphis, even though I know that's going to be very unpopular. We'll just kind of see how things kind of play out. See what happens with the SEC, and if they decide to go after, Oklahoma State and start looking at expanding beyond 16, then we could probably see everything's happening. Now for some of the other conferences in the FBS level, now you got to look at the Mountain West and the American. People talking about them possibly merging after being rated. I don't see that one happening. It's the Mountain West that got pretty much ransacked, getting down to 9 members. In my scenario, the American can stay as is with 12. I don't see them going anywhere else really. They do have a couple options. Excuse me. Do have a couple options out there that could help facilitate them later on. But for Mountain West, they're the ones that really got to expand and then they get some quality programs to get out there, which means they're looking at the WAC and the Big Sky to really facilitate them. And that's Montana State, and Weber State. These are 3 of the top 4 winning programs in the Big Sky in the past 5 years. Eastern Washington is actually better than Montana's. However, their 8,000 capacity blood field kind of takes them out of the picture a bit. And with Montana and Montana State, you're looking at two really good powerhouses in the FCS football. Montana has a national championship, so that really helped elevate the Mountain West once again. After losing Boise State, San Diego State, you need to replace that quality schools with quality schools, and that's Montana and Montana State. Weber State just replaces Utah State in the state of Utah. Put them back in there. And then I also think they should go after Grand Canyon from the WAC as a basketball member to offset Hawaii. Much like Navy and Wichita State in the American, you'll have Grand Canyon and Hawaii do the same thing. Now, here I think the Mountain West will look even beyond that and start expanding even more to kind of counter any other aggressive actions. I can see them going after North Dakota State, South Dakota State as well to really bring in the power into that conference, make them a force du jour of the Power 5. But that may be a bit overstretched for them, going from Fargo, North Dakota to Honolulu, Hawaii. That's a huge, huge travel cost for those small universities, and they may not do that. So I could see New Mexico State and UTEP leave Conference USA for the Mountain West. So all the Mountain Time Zone teams are together again. That way New Mexico State, New Mexico, and UTEP have their rivalries as conference games every year. That builds up that rivalry, maybe give them a couple good wins a year. So I kind of see that aspect could possibly happen. I'll go more likely that scenario could happen because I think those two schools will look at Conference USA and like they're not looking out for our interest. They're looking east. So we're better off going west with other schools that would like it, but understand adding those two will bring nothing to value, even though they'll kind of mimic Nevada UNLV leaving. So I think all in all, if you add those schools, you're pretty much replacing what you lost. The American, they could go after the Dakotas, as I mentioned previously. You also bring in Army UConn as football only. But I've always been one of those people that say that Army and Navy would never be in the same conference, so that way they keep their last game, their annual matchup as the last game of the season after conference championship games, mind you, as the final game of the regular season. So I don't see that one scenario paying out. And plus UConn has bad blood with the Americans, so I don't see them coming back. So North Dakota State, South Dakota State could come join the American, or they can go somewhere else. And the other conference in this mix that has a lot of issues that could happen as well, especially New Mexico State and UTEP leave, is Conference USA. They're now back down to 7. So what are the things you got to look after? Well, 1, North Dakota State, South Dakota State. I believe those two are the next two coming up because they're also way up there in the past 5 years in terms of wins. I believe North Dakota State is the best one of them all with 66 wins. I mean, look at what they've done in the FCS level. It's time for them to move up. There's no doubt about it. Now, I know their stadium, the Fargo Dome, not really conducive for the FBS football, but you got to bring these guys up. I mean, there's no tiptoeing around that subject. They have to be part of the FBS. South Dakota State's number 4, and with 48 wins in the past 5 years, and they have almost a 20,000 capacity stadium themselves as an outdoor facility, so they could probably expand it, be outdoor like Minnesota's. So it's a really cold games of December. So those two definitely making a move. For them, they don't make more sense in terms of Conference USA because of we Conference USA is more of a southern type of conference. So like I said, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, there's they compare with either Conference USA, the MAC, which I highly doubt to go there, or the American. I'm going to put them back in the American. I really think the American's going to go ahead back up to 14 and really give them that cushion. So then Conference USA is going back down. Okay, now who do you go after? Well, now if you look at programs that have been pretty successful the past 5 years, that's Kennesaw State and Central Arkansas, out of the ASUN. The other problem with these universities is their stadiums. Kennesaw State has over 8,000 capacity stadium, but since they're in a suburb of Atlanta, they possibly could, I'm not saying they would, could share the facility with the Falcons / Atlanta United or Georgia State until they can, get their stadium built up to maybe host, 16,000, 20,000, maybe you can go to a 30,000 capacity seat stadium. Who knows? But, I think that's probably what's going to happen if Kennesaw State does make the move. But I think with them, they are number 3 in the FCS the past 5 years with 49 wins. I know I've had a few of you guys mention this before. Take away that 2020 season, which they didn't play a lot of games, they were averaging 11 wins a season. So that's definitely one of these schools I think you could probably bring up. I know people have mentioned that before, some of my other scenarios that about Kennesaw State, and very detailed proves that, they possibly right. They could be a very good addition to Conference USA, gets them into the Atlanta market, natural rival with Jacksonville State. And then Central Arkansas, in Conway, Arkansas, part of the Central Arkansas statistical area, pretty much outside Little Rock. They can move their games to War Memorial down Little Rock until they can build up their stadium, or they can just continue playing in Little Rock and have their fan base travel, which is not that far, but who knows? I mean, and then with Central Arkansas, they've had a 35-win season. They're not, the number 12 in the win categories, that aspect the past 5 years. If you don't count, Pioneer, Ivy League, and a couple other, newcomers. So with that being said, I think Central Arkansas and Kennesaw State will definitely be in there as long as they can get some stadium issues taken care of. So that puts them back up to 9. So what they do after that, there lies a couple different scenarios. One I've always mentioned is Army, UConn, UMass coming in as football only, and maybe in Florida Gulf Coast coming in as a basketball offset. But that means Conference USA has to change their bylaws, pretty much saying you have to have pretty much all the major sports in conference play. So if that changes, I'll go with that scenario. But I think Conference USA will stick with that, saying, nope, we will have this in place, and you will meet these requirements, or you're not playing in this conference. So where do you go after that? You look at the Colonial, look at a couple of programs there, and that's North Carolina, A&T, and Delaware, with decent-sized stadiums, decent programs, with win totals the past 5 years. But I think Delaware's may be a little bit outside their sphere they want to go to. They could go there. I mean, there's not saying they wouldn't, but the party not go that direction. Stephen F. Austin, even though the past 5 years are not best for them, however, they have a huge rivalry with Sam Houston. So bringing them up will reignite that rivalry. Not only that, but the rivalry with Louisiana Tech and the rivalry with Central Arkansas, because all 4 of those schools were once members of the Southland, now in the same conference once again, and now create bad blood between those 4. And I think it'd be excellent for everyone involved. And Eastern Kentucky's another one I think they'll probably actually grab as well. Really complete the dismantling of the ASUN football aspirations. Grabbing CNF Austin kind of dismantles the WAC football aspirations. So the WAC ASUN alliance will still continue. I know other schools they could definitely look at. Austin P. I know once, but their stadium is super small and needs some serious upgrades. Murray State, Missouri State, Southern Illinois, any party in Illinois State, out in Missouri Valley. Missouri State definitely will fit right in that their little neck of the woods, being there in the southwest part of the state. So I know I've kind of rambled on a bit about this once, and only time will tell what will happen. What's the next domino to fall? I think everything will look at what the Pac-12 does. I think also look at what the ACC does. Like I said, I don't foresee the SEC or the Big Ten going past 16. Once you get past 16, then you kind of lose any type of credibility at trying to establish rivalries between your schools, because then you don't have a possibility of seeing this school in your 3 or 4 year stay at a university. So they'll probably look at keeping it at 16, making it easier that way. I think the ACC will be the next one to go to 16. Like I said, I think Notre Dame will probably be about 75% chance Notre Dame fully commits to the ACC. There's a lot of issues with that one, but that means the ACC will have to keep or Notre Dame will have to be allowed to keep their embassy contract. They'll have to share some of that revenue with the ACC a bit, or put a portion of that revenue into a pot for the ACC, so that way they'll just distribute the money from the NBC, ESPN contracts to the rest of the schools. And then who's going to be that 16th member? Who they're going to grab out of the Big 12. Like I said, I don't think UCF will be the one, because that's a third Florida program. They're not going to do that. West Virginia makes more sense due to rivalries, but I can see them going after Cincinnati before they go after West Virginia, even Memphis before them. So, but I'm going to go, like I said, I'm going to stick with West Virginia, because I think they actually belong in ACC. But as we all know, geography plays no point in this scenario whatsoever. It's whatever they decide, and like I said, I'll stick with West Virginia in that one. I don't see the Pac-12, Big 12 merging, nor do I see the Mountain West American merging after they get rated. I kind of do see the ASUN of WAC football aspirations go away. That's already starting the process now. So I think those two will continue their alliance as a football conference, but they may not last much longer either. But like I said, I've gone way too long talking about this one. And what do you think? What's the next domino to fall in this scenario? I thought this game was over. Then again, here we go again. Nothing but, the college realignment carousel has begun once again. How you foresee this playing out? Do you see, Super Leagues going to 20, 24, becoming mini, semi-pro football leagues? Do you see ACC going 16? Do you see the Pac-12, Big 12 merging and then cutting loose, their lower-end programs? Let me know in the comments below. Where you're there, you can hit that thumbs up once again. You can share this video with your friends and family. Once you hit that notification, make sure you smash that bell. Let you know next time I post a video. And I'll see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.